What's up guys, I'm Jonah. This section of the gear videos, we're gonna be talking about the camera gear that we use to film all the different Southbound series, all the different social stuff that we're shooting. So Danny and I have been full-time filmmakers for 6-7 years now. So the camera gear that we're bringing on these trips is extensive. A lot of people going on motorcycle trips like this, documenting it might not be bringing this much, but we figured it'd be cool to give an insight of what we like to bring, and you can kind of pick and choose like what stuff you like or what sort of categories of things you feel like are important to you. So in this video, we're gonna be covering like a few different categories of things, workflow, managing how much time you're spending filming versus just like being on the trip, and kind of like just what that's like in general. And then we're gonna be talking about all the cameras, lenses, drones, audio equipment, and then sort of like the rigging category, and then just like data and charging and that sort of thing. So one thing that is applicable kind of to everyone is managing how much time you're spending filming on the trip. It's definitely a challenge like in a group setting because sometimes you just like see something that's like so insane you want to shoot it, but like other people are going different directions. So just as an example of that, the first year that we went on this trip through Mexico, most of our camera gear was just in our duffel bags, and every time we wanted to shoot something, we had to pull over, take the rock straps off the duffel bags, unzip the duffel bags, then go into the camera bag, get that out, set the drone up, and it was just like too much time. Over the course of a long trip, it just compounds and it just gets exhausting having to spend so much time setting stuff up. So to try and cut down on some of that in-between time to make sure that we're just spending as much time enjoying it or like getting the 6 shots that we want, Danny and I have bigger tank bags to try and optimize that. So I have like my main camera and lens set up in here at all times, and then Danny has his sort of smaller drone setup in his tank bag so that we can just like not even get off the bikes and just like bam, drones in the air, cameras in hands, that's it. The main video camera that we use for this trip is the Sony a7S III. We love Sony cameras a lot. They're super compact. They can shoot really high frame rates at high resolutions. The a7S III does 4K at 120, has amazing color information, 10-bit color, really good log profile, and really good in-body stabilization, which is super helpful for these trips because it's tricky to always be busting out the gimbal, so having just something that we can get really smooth handheld shots with is super nice. Danny is rocking the a7 IV, which is a really nice kind of camera to pair with because it has higher resolution for photos. So if we're taking photos for brands or something along those lines, it's nice to have that extra sauce, if you know what I mean. So moving on to lenses, we have 4 different lenses with us. The main lens that we use for video on this trip is the Tamron 28-75, which is just a really nice mid-range zoom. It's kind of like a do-it-all sort of lens. It's 2.8 aperture, so at 75 millimeters, it still looks really good for that kind of like creamy portrait style shooting, but you can also open up wide and get like kind of a vlog setup as well. The next lens is the Zeiss 16-35. This is an f4 lens. It's super sharp, super light, pretty damn cheap, honestly, for what it is. The next lens that we bring is the 80, oh wow, no back cap on there. Oops. Oh, it's there, it just fell off. The next lens is the Sony 85 1.8. This is like one of my favorite lenses of all time just because it's so light, it's so cheap, it's razor sharp, and it's like you cannot take a bad shot on this lens. It's crazy. People shots and like interactions look so good on this lens with how creamy the background gets. We love it. And then the final lens that we're on is the 35-150 by Tamron. It's a really good, like huge length lens. So it's really nice for photos because it's like, you can just zoom way the hell into that cow right over there. And then, oh, and it's itching its butt, nice. And then you can zoom right back out to me at 35 mil, and it's just like super versatile. It's 2 to 2.8, which is very rare for a lens with that big of a focal length. So last thing to do with lenses is we also have variable ND filters on the lenses at all times, which is super important for video to cut down your shutter speed, make sure you have that nice looking motion blur. Moving on to drones, which is the fun part. So the main drone that we're using on this trip is the Mavic 3 Pro from DJI. It has 3 different cameras of different focal lengths, which makes it like super versatile for storytelling, which we love on these trips. Has a 24 mil, a 70 mil, and like 162 mil, very random number, but it's a 7x zoom from the original camera. It's great in low light, it has amazing battery life, and on these trips also, really importantly, it has amazing signal strength. A lot of what we're having to do is pull over on the side of the road, two of us go way down the road to get shots, and having really good signal strength is super helpful. And then the other drone that we're using that we keep in Danny's tank bag is the Mavic Mini 4. I feel like the advantage of this one can kind of speak for itself. Look how freaking tiny this thing is, it's insane. So we have ND filters for this, also super important because you don't have that aperture control on this drone, but it really shines in just the fact that it's so easy to keep like right on hand at all times. It still looks amazing. It can still fly pretty damn far. The battery life is great. And one of the nice things that's just really nice about this drone is the batteries charge a little bit easier off the bike. So you kind of get like more flight time per time charging on the bike, if that makes sense, which is really, really helpful. And then the next category of drones that we're using on these trips is FPV. So Danny will hop in real quick to talk about that.
All right, so being a FPV pilot, I would love to bring 87 drones on this trip. Hello, bird. He's a paid actor. I'd love to bring like so many of my different FPV drones on this trip, but because of space, I just literally can't. So the only drone that I bring on this trip is the DJI Avata 2. Honestly, this thing absolutely rips. The camera is really solid, and just from a space perspective, it's kind of the smallest FPV setup that you can have. I wish I could bring all my drones, but on this specific trip, we just have the Avata 2 and it works out super well.
All right, so the next category of things is action cams. We have GoPro Hero 13s on this trip. We have like one for each of us. They're super incredible, versatile cameras, and they're also the camera that we have that just like takes up no time added to get shots while we're on the trips, which is super, super important. So we have them helmet mounted most of the time, so we can just kind of like see what we're seeing. And we have the max lens is on here, which is super nice. We film in like square aspect ratios so that we can just film as much of the sensor as possible, get the most information possible, then we can crop it however we want later. The max lens is super nice just because you kind of get like the handlebars in the shot, you get like the background. If we're having to ride through like big mountains too, it's really nice to just kind of like see everything and then pick what you want to see later. So the next thing that we have with us that we honestly haven't used that much on this trip, but we did more in the last year, is the GoPro Max. The 360 cam can be really, really nice. The one thing that's tricky about it is like from an editing perspective, it just takes like a lot longer to kind of look through what shots you have, reframe everything. So I think for that reason, particularly because we have the wide angle on the helmets, we just like haven't been using it as much. But it is something that we do have and can be super, super useful. And then the last like action cam, not really an action cam that we use on these trips, but is super important, is our phones. So me and Danny do most of the phone filming. We have the 15. Having our phones in our pockets that can just shoot really far, really wide, close, have great audio, like all at the same time, just super versatile, is so, so important. And honestly, a lot of the like more intimate and just like quicker moments happen like just on an iPhone or just captured on the iPhone, because sometimes we just don't have time to bust out the cameras. We try to as much as we can, but super helpful. So speaking of audio, the only other two audio things that we have with us is the Rode Video Micro, which is super nice, really, really cheap, sounds great. It doesn't need external power, you don't need to charge it. So this we kind of just use when it's like windy out. Sometimes we'll use the onboard mic for the Sonys if it's not windy at all. It sounds really great, and it's just one little extra step to put on the camera. So yeah, good thing to have. The other mic that we have with us is the DJI wireless system. As you can see right here, it sounds very nice. We don't use it a ton, but for stuff like this, some of the like reflection things where we're talking to the tripod, it's really nice to have just because it sounds great, super easy, you don't have to sync it up in post. But there are tons of other like great cheap options for this as well. There's also like wired systems like the Tascam DR10L that I love a lot that are like super reliable. You just have to sync it in post, not a big deal, but yeah, that's pretty much it for audio. And then moving on to the second to last category, which is just rigging. One of the things that has been surprisingly like insanely helpful for this trip is these new mounts by GoPro. So they have a clip and a magnet on them. It's harder when I'm holding the helmet, but they are very freaking amazing. Having this has been just like a huge advantage. Speaking of chin mounts, we have these chin mounts from a company called Chin Mounts, which we really like. They have different mounts for like all sorts of different helmets and stuff. And honestly, like the POV perspective has been like one of the most important things we've had in these films. The other place that we typically mount the GoPros is on these Magic Arms by Small Rig. So they have this like one twist setup. There's a clamp on the other end so you can put them all around the bike, get shots of the wheel, get shots of like facing you. And we also have that magnetic clip GoPro mount on here too. So it's just like a quick thing back and forth. These things have been really amazing, but I think over the course of our last 7 weeks of beating the crap out of them, they're starting to kind of like show some signs of wear, and I don't think they're gonna last that much longer. We've had some of them break. So we're looking for like other alternatives for this too. We're not really sure if there's a better option than this, or if maybe we just need to bring a couple extra of these. But depending on what you're doing, maybe it won't last the whole trip. But they have been awesome so far. I also have the DJI RS3 Mini with me. We don't use the ton, but it's definitely the gimbal that could take up the least possible space in my bag, but also handle the lens and camera setups that we're using. So it's nice to have occasionally for smooth shots. One thing that's really important too, just for our whole camera systems in general, is we have the Falcam F3.8 quick release mounting plate systems on like everything. So on the tripod, on the bottom of the cameras, we have it on the backpacks, and having that just again cuts down on that sort of in-between time. Speaking of tripods, the one that we have with us is Danny's Ulanzi Zero. Super nice tripod. It is incredibly light, small, like gets quite tall, is amazing for talking heads, photos, and is like a lot cheaper than like competitors like Peak Design, but honestly, just as good. So we love this tripod and we use it quite frequently. All right, so the last category of things that we're talking about is data and charging. So data-wise, we have our laptops and like 4 terabyte SSDs. It's super important to be kind of like anal about backing things up in the middle of these trips, because you spend all this time and effort filming, and if you were to lose all that stuff, that is a huge bummer. So once a week or even less than that, Danny and I will make sure we have everything backed up. We have everything copied to 2 different drives, and then we keep 1 drive in each of our different bags. So God forbid something happens to one of the bags, at least we have another copy on the other bag. We have 256 gigabyte cards wherever possible, like in the Sonys, which we're using a lot. And then just like various different micros, all sorts of different kinds for the drones. We have a bunch of different micros for the drones, which is really nice because sometimes when you shoot something that you're like, oh my God, this is one of the craziest things I've ever shot, but you don't have time to back it up, you can just swap cards, and then if the drone goes down somewhere else, God forbid, at least you have that card saved in your SD card case. So for the micros, we're using pro grade cards, which is super nice because a lot of micros have pretty slow read and write speeds. Since these are a lot faster, it just takes like a lot less time when you're dumping footage at camp. It really cuts down your whole data dumping time, which is super nice. So all of this stuff, unsurprisingly, requires quite a bit of electricity. Finding that electricity while you're on a trip like this, going through the mountains, staying at hotels maybe occasionally, is pretty challenging. So in order to try and give ourselves the best chance at having the most stuff charged as possible, we have these systems on the bike that basically that go from the battery and then go to USB and USB-C. It uses an SAE connection to do that, so we get 30 watts out of the USB-C. So we use these SAE to USB connections throughout the day to charge drone batteries, camera batteries, and also most importantly, these Anker power banks. They're high wattage, which is really important so that they can charge a lot quicker. So we'll charge the batteries on the bikes throughout the day, and then at night we can use these to kind of power a lot of our stuff. The challenging thing is like riding off-road. Sometimes the connections get loose, so like often we're having to bundle clothes around the battery banks and try and make sure that everything's charging. It's definitely something that we're still like facing challenges with, so we're like looking for different options to make sure that that's a little bit more reliable. Sometimes at the end of the day, we're like, oh shit, the battery bank wasn't charging, that's a pain in the ass. So yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. And then while we're at hotels and stuff, we have these little things which are like unbelievably clutch. They just like are power splitters, so we can kind of charge all things at once. And I also have these little USB-C to USB-C little splitters to kind of cut down on how many cords we're bringing, which I've found surprisingly helpful. And all of that stuff is organized in this Peak Design organizer bag, which I love very dearly. Just kind of keeps you sane with all that little stuff. Goddamn, so that was a lot of gear. We tried to get through it kind of quick while still giving good information on everything. It is definitely a challenge trying to create films on these sort of trips, but like we just love doing it so much. We love motorcycles so much. We want to share with the world kind of like what we're doing and all these beautiful places, so we hope you guys really enjoy those films, get a little bit out of seeing how we do things, and excited to see like what you guys are making on your trips. Please
like and subscribe.
Yes, like and fucking subscribe. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. There's another gear video coming out soon where Jesse's talking about all things motorcycle, so subscribe, stick around for that, and we'll see you in the next one.